Hey, what's going on, everybody? Samuel Akem here, and I'm back with another one. I appreciate you guys for tapping into yet another one of my Akem'S analysis videos. I got a great video for you guys today. Tom Worcester last week in his address to the conference mentioned something about annual opponents. So we're going to watch a quick video about that and then talk about those in this week's video. We are also going to talk about starting quarterbacks within the conference. We're going to talk about Montana's starting quarterback situation and the competition that they're going to have this fall camp. We're also going to talk about UC Davis's situation. We're going to talk a little bit about Sacramento State, but it's more so about Kaiden Bennett and his new location where he's at. We're also going to talk about Sacred Heart joining the CAA in 2026 for football. We're going to talk a little bit about that conference and who they've added, who they've lost within the conference. Marcus Welnel is the new Assistant Athletic Director, CRO, Chief Revenue Officer at the University of Montana. So we're going to talk about that and what that means. There's been a lot of talk back and forth about collectives. Can these deals be sent through? Are these legal deals to be had within the new landscape of college football? The College Sports Commission and NIL Go had recently been denying a lot of collective deals to go through, and recently they've released some guidance on whether those deals can go through or not. So we're going to talk about that a little bit in this video as well. So got a lot of good topics for you guys this week, talking Big Sky football, talking FCS football, talking college football broadly, and I want to get into all of it with you guys. So please leave a like, please leave a comment, please subscribe to the channel down below. Let me know what you guys think about everything, and we will get straight into it. Okay, first things first, I want to get into talking about the annual opponents and what Tom Worcester said when he was addressing the rest of the conference as it pertains to these annual opponents. Pull this video up. Tom Worcester talking about annual opponents. We're going to see what he had to say. The question given was asking about the protected rivals, and he mentioned the annual opponents. So we're going to get into that. I'll share my screen, and then we'll talk about it afterward.
Two protected rivals, could that number increase with more conference games?
Yeah, so what we've done is annual opponents is kind of what we're calling them. We've asked our ADs to send in kind of 4 preferred annual opponents, and Dan Satter and our kind of scheduling group is working through. Some of them will get more than others, and that's just how the math works and trying to fit the opponents, but we're trying to get everybody as many annual opponents as they want. Some of them want them for rivals.
So he goes on to say that some of them want them for rivalry, some of them want them for regionality. You know, there's different reasons why certain schools want certain annual opponents, but everybody's not going to get what they want. So I wanted to take a stab at, obviously, they asked the athletic directors and the coaches to send in 4 annual rivals, so 4 teams that they would like to be annual rivals, and I've taken a stab at who I think those 4 could be from each school. Now, obviously, like he said, everybody's not going to get what they want. He even made a quote where if everybody can get 80% of what they want, everybody will be happy. I think, you know, obviously everybody's not going to have 4 annual opponents either. I think that's kind of what he was saying in his answer as well, is that we've asked them to send us historically what it's been in the Big Sky Conference. Everybody has had 2 protected rivals. For Montana, I believe the 2 protected have been Montana State, and I want to say Portland State, because it seems like Montana has played Portland State every single year. And I don't know why that was one of Montana's protected rivals, but I think it was. I think it was Portland State, just because I see them on the schedule every year. I didn't know. I've never honestly given any guidance on who Montana's second protected rival was outside of Montana State, but I've always wondered why it wasn't Idaho. Now, if the reason it wasn't Idaho was because Idaho was out of the conference for a while, that makes a lot of sense. But outside of that, I don't know why Idaho would not be one of Montana's protected rivals. Either way, I've taken a stab at who I think each team's 4 could potentially be. Now, obviously, like Tom Worcester said, everybody's not going to get 4. Everybody might not get exactly what they're looking for. But for Montana, obviously Montana State, Idaho, Eastern Washington, and for the 4th for Montana, I put UC Davis. The first 3 I'm pretty solid on. Montana State, obviously. Idaho, obviously. 2 trophy games, one of them being one of the biggest rivalry games in all of college football. So you got to have those 2 on there. Eastern Washington, I think, you know, recently this Eastern Washington-Montana game has become bigger than it has been historically. You know, I think historically Montana fans don't really see Eastern Washington as a rivalry, but I think in the recent past, that Eastern Washington-Montana game has been built up to be a pretty big game within the conference, and a lot of times it has a lot of standing. Like when I think about the 2021 season when they had such a strong squad at Eastern Washington, they played a game on national television. It was like 3 versus number 4. It was one of the big games early on in the FCS season, and Eastern Washington ended up winning a close one. Those two teams ended up playing again in a very highly anticipated playoff game in Montana. And, it was just a big time atmosphere. Both teams' fan bases got very into it. The players got very into it. And it was just a whole thing. I think Eastern Washington could be considered a potential rivalry. And these aren't necessarily rivals, but these are annual opponents that teams will play. If there were any annual games that I think Montana should play every year, it'd be Montana State, Idaho, Eastern Washington, and then UC Davis. There was no really justification for UC Davis on there. I just put UC Davis in there. That doesn't really matter. It's neither here nor there for that one, but I think that could be another potential protected rival for Montana. At Montana State, gotta have Montana on there. For Montana State, I don't know if they have a ton of teams that I would say should technically be annual opponents for them. But if I had to say anybody as an annual opponent for Montana State, I would put Eastern Washington on there. I would put Idaho in there. And then I put UC Davis, but I think that fourth team also could be interchangeable. I think that could be dictated based on the year, based on the last 5 years, based on the decade. I mean, I think these should change per decade or change per 5 years. I mean, I think every 3 to 5 years you should go in and adjust teams' annual opponents. It shouldn't be set in stone. Now, obviously, some of those rivalries like Montana State, they are going to be in lockstep until those schools no longer exist or until college football no longer exists. That game is going to be played and should be played. If there's a time when that game is not played, I predict there's a riot that's going to take place in the state of Montana. But UC Davis, I mean, I put them in there. I don't know. But that's the fourth. Obviously, you want to put 4. So for Idaho, who I would put, if I were to put together 4 annual opponents for Idaho, it would be Montana. It would definitely be Montana State. It would be Idaho State, and it would be Eastern Washington. Eastern Washington for that Washington-Idaho type competition. Idaho State's obviously a rival for them. Montana, we are obviously a rival for them. And then Montana State, I will put Montana State on there because me as a fan of the Big Sky Conference, I would want to see Montana State and Idaho play each year. That's why I put them in there. You go next, you go Idaho State. Idaho's in there. Weber State is in there. That Weber State-Idaho State game is a rivalry. I don't actually know what that Weber State-Idaho State football rivalry is called. That's actually what I'm typing in right now. I don't even know if it's it's called the Train Bell. The Train Bell Trophy. So it's the Train Bell rivalry between Idaho State and Weber State. So that game definitely should be played every year. Portland State for the third team for Idaho State. No really justification for that. And then Eastern Washington, there's literally only one justification why I put Eastern Washington on there. And it was because they played a very close game in the 2023 season where Eastern Washington had a pretty solid lead. Idaho State came back. Eastern Washington had a chance to win it at the end with Idaho State holding a 1-point lead. Eastern Washington kicked a game-winning field goal and missed it. Idaho State won. Now, I don't know if there's any other recent games like that, but for that reason is why I put Eastern Washington on the list for Idaho State. But definitely Idaho, definitely Weber State for Idaho State. Portland State and Eastern Washington, who cares? Eastern Washington is next. We're going to throw Idaho on there. Now, Eastern Washington is an interesting one because I don't know if they necessarily have a rival. Like I don't think they have any trophy games. I don't think there's any name games that they play, named rivalry games that they play. That should change. Yeah, but I don't know who that would be. But I put Idaho. I put Montana because I think if there were one biggest rival for Eastern Washington, I think that biggest rival would be Montana. I think Eastern Washington fans, if you ask them who's your biggest rival within the Big Sky Conference, I think those fans would say Montana as well. So got to have Montana in there. Portland State, the reason I put Portland State is because that Oregon-Washington rivalry, Oregon-Washington, those states border each other. Would love to see some type of rivalry. Same for Idaho, same justification for Idaho on Eastern Washington's list. Idaho, Washington rivalry. Let's do an Eastern Washington, Idaho rivalry. Same for Portland State and Eastern Washington. And then Idaho State is number 4. Same justification as I did with Eastern Washington on Idaho State's list is Idaho State. Eastern Washington played a recent game. That was pretty competitive. I don't have any other justification outside of that. For Weber State, we got Idaho State. That's the, as they call it, the Train Bell game. I'm seeing right here, it's the Train Bell Trophy is what they play for between Idaho State and Weber State. So that game, I would guess, is called the Train Bell game. I don't know how they got that name. I'm not looking at the history right now, but Weber State, we got Idaho State. Number 2, we got Northern Arizona. And then the 3 and 4 for Weber State would be Southern Utah and Utah Tech for me, because those are all the Utah schools. You would want to have all the Utah schools play against each other. That's something Tom Wistrcill mentioned. Some of these schools want teams for regionality. Let's do a battle of Utah. Utah Tech, Southern Utah, Weber State, have all the Utah schools play against each other. I mean, part of me, the jokester in me, wanted to call it like the Battle of the Mormons or something, but I don't know if that would be like disrespectful to the Latter Day Saints, or I don't know if that's disrespectful to the religion. So obviously you wouldn't want to say that, but that would be a pretty cool name, right? I think so. I mean, no disrespect to any Latter Day Saints, Mormons, or anything like that. So please forgive me if that is offensive. I just think that'd be a cool rivalry name. You know, all Utah schools. Utah is known for a ton of Mormonism, so obviously, you know, duh. I don't know. But yeah, those are the four for Weber State: Idaho State, Northern Arizona, Utah Tech, and Southern Utah. Obviously, Utah Tech and Southern Utah are joining in 2026. But that would be where I would see them at. For UC Davis, and the UC Davis, Cal Poly, Sac State justification is the same for the Utah schools. I would like all the California schools to play against each other. I don't know what that competition could be called, like the battle of the sunny states, or the battle of the coast, the battle of the coast. Ooh. Now, obviously, all of those cities aren't coastal cities, but the Battle of the Coast, you know? I don't know, man. Either way, UC Davis, you got Sac State, who's leaving in 2026, but I think even after Sac State leaves the conference, I think they should still play UC Davis. I mean, that's the Causeway Classic. They play that every year. It's a very competitive game. Even last year when UC Davis, I would say, was considerably better than Sac State. Sac State was able to get up and ready to go for that game. And it was a much closer game than many probably thought it would be. But Sac State and then Cal Poly, obviously the other two California schools, Montana for UC Davis and then Montana State for UC Davis. I don't have a great justification for Montana and Montana State outside of the recent games that they've played and, you know, the competitiveness that both teams have showed within the Big Sky Conference. I don't have a big justification for putting Montana State and Montana on the list for UC Davis, but two protected. If there were two that they for surely should get, I think it would be Sac State and Cal Poly for UC Davis. For Sac State, who's leaving in 2026, UC Davis, Cal Poly. I put Idaho and Portland State on there, but same for UC Davis. Same as UC Davis. I don't have a huge justification for 3 and 4 on Sac State's list. Idaho and Portland State. I don't see a huge reason why they should be protected. I mean, outside of the fact that, you know, those would be good games to watch. I mean, Idaho and I mean, where am I even at? Yeah, Idaho and Portland State. Idaho for Sac State. That would be a competitive game that I would like to see each year. But for Portland State, I mean, I don't know any huge rivals that Portland State has, so it's hard to put a list together for Portland State. Portland State is actually our next team. And Portland State, we're going to go Eastern Washington for the Oregon-Washington rivalry. We're going to go Idaho State for the Oregon-Idaho, maybe, you know, the state teams, the State of the Union. It could be called the State of the Union rivalry, Portland State versus Idaho State, because they both have state in their name. I mean, I'm grabbing for anything right now, so... Sac State at number 3, and then Montana. For Portland State, like I was just saying when I was talking about the Sac State list, there's no huge justification for any of these teams, maybe outside of Eastern Washington with the Washington-Oregon rivalry, but Idaho State, Sac State, and Montana, there's not a big reason. I don't know who Portland State would put as their protected rival. They're probably going to look at more regional-type annual opponents as opposed to the games that could be considered maybe rivalries, because I don't think they have a ton of rivalries. Northern Colorado, you got NAU, you got Montana State, you got Idaho, and you got Southern Utah. My justification for Southern Utah on there is literally, it's funny. South versus the North. Southern Utah has South in its name. Northern Colorado has North in its name. The North versus the South. I mean, even though regional, like if you look at a map, Southern Utah is more northern than Northern Colorado. Despite that, I still think the North and the South could be a funny play on words, you know? Real people who don't know the region could be like, oh yeah, it's because they're actually opposite. Southern Utah is more northern. Northern Colorado is more southern. That's why we call it the North versus South. Right? I don't know. I truly have no idea. But I think that could be interesting. But Northern Colorado, same for Portland State, same as Portland State. There's not a ton of teams that you think of rivalries, because in order to form a rivalry, there has to have been a back and forth historically between the two teams. And I don't think Northern Colorado has a pretty competitive back and forth with anybody. I don't think they've been competitive in that manner with any team out of the Big Sky Conference. So from that standpoint, they wouldn't have any rivalries within the conference, and nobody who you think of that should be an annual opponent for them. So tough for Northern Colorado. NAU, I got Weber State. Online, it was saying something about an NAU Weber State rivalry. That's why I put NAU in there. That's why I put Weber State in there. Southern Utah, who's joining the conference in 2026, similar justification as the Southern Utah, Northern Colorado, like Southern Utah, Northern Arizona, same thing. I know it's opposite, but it just makes sense in my head. Eastern Washington, and Cal Poly. It's tougher for some of these other teams who don't have very, very established rivalries or very, very established competitive games with some of these teams in the conference. I think that Weber State one would be a good one with Weber State and NAU. Outside of Weber State for NAU, I don't know, and maybe some of these teams are going to the table and saying like, hey, we only want one team to be protected. Anybody else, we don't really care. And then I could see a lane where maybe athletic directors are saying like, hey, we want to play Northern Colorado, Portland State, and I'm trying to think, maybe Utah Tech. We want to play those three schools every year, or maybe they add another one in there, Southern Utah, and maybe they see it as a way to where like, we can get at least 2 to 3 wins if we're playing these teams each year. The other schools, obviously, it's going to be a challenge, but if we put these 3-4 schools in here, we know these are victories every year. I don't know. I don't know if anybody would do that. Most people are competitive. Most people want to play the best and beat the best. So I would hope nobody would be thinking of it from that standpoint. But hey, I wouldn't put it past anybody. Winning is winning. And if you win, that brings more fans. More fans means more money means more recruits means more winning. It all plays together. So if you're able to put together some annual opponents that can get you some wins that lead to more Big Sky championships, hey, I can't fault you. And then lastly, we got Cal Poly, UC Davis, and Sac State for their 2. And then NAU, Weber State, I put on there. I don't have a huge justification for NAU and Weber State, but Cal Poly, UC Davis, and Sac State, those are the 3 that should definitely be in lockstep as long as they're playing in the Big Sky at the very least. So for one more year, at least for Sac State, I think those are schools that they should play, but who knows? That's my stab at looking at the annual opponents for these schools. Obviously, each school was tasked with sending through 4. That doesn't mean they're going to get 4, but the school is going to look at trying to put together these annual opponents for these schools. I think they should prioritize some of the better schools in the conference. Even though it doesn't have to be equitable. And Tom Whistle mentioned it's not going to be equitable. Some teams are going to get 3, some teams are going to get 2. Not everybody's going to get everything they want, but hopefully we can make everybody happy. And I think Montana State, speaking of Montana, firstly, Montana State should be locked in. Idaho should be locked in. I would like to see Eastern Washington be locked in for Montana also. Even though Eastern Washington hasn't been a super competitive team the last few years, that's a team that I think Montana should play every year. That's honestly a team I'd like to see Montana State play each year as well. Same with Idaho. Even though that's not a rivalry game for Montana State, I would like for Montana State to play Idaho every year. For Idaho, if I could pick one team that I would like each school to play each year, for Montana, it's Montana State. Montana State is Montana. Idaho, it's Montana. Idaho State, it's Idaho. Eastern Washington, honestly, for them, the team I would love for them to see play the most each year is Montana. I have Idaho as number 1 on this list, but these weren't really numbered in a ranking order. It was just 1 through 4. I would like Eastern Washington to play Montana every year. For Weber State, I would like them to play Idaho State each year. For UC Davis, Sac State. For Sac State, UC Davis. For Portland State, Eastern Washington. For Northern Colorado, NAU. For NAU, I would like them to play Weber State each year. I think for Weber State, I said Idaho State. For NAU, I would like them to play Weber State each year. For Cal Poly, it's either UC Davis or Sac State. There's no justification either way, but one of the California schools should be their protected route. So I think you have at least 1, maybe 2 for each school. Each school knows, like, hey, if we get to pick one team that we can play each year, this is the team we need to play. The conference is asking to put 4 together, put a list of 4 together, and then we'll find out what we can do for you. We'll see what we can do for you. But you guys let me know what you guys think about these annual opponents. What do you guys think each team's annual opponent should be? How many do you think each team should get? Are there certain schools that you think should be locks in for annual opponents? You guys let me know in the comments down below, and I will move on. Okay, we are talking starting quarterbacks within the Big Sky Conference. In particular, we're talking to the University of Montana and their starting quarterback situation and where it has been over the last 5 to 10 years. SWX released an article this past week talking about the starting quarterback situation at the University of Montana. This was done by content creator at SWX, Vince Bagby, and he said, over the past years, there have been 15 different quarterbacks in the Big Sky Conference throw for at least 2,300 yards in a season. None of them have played for the Montana Grizzlies. And he said, quote, Montana has not had a quarterback surpass 2,300 yards passing in a season since Dalton Snead, 3,346 yards, did so in 2019. Over that same 5-year stretch, there have been 15 different Big Sky quarterbacks to eclipse 2,300 yards passing in a single season. what are my thoughts? So first things first, does a high level of passing yards mean success? No, it necessarily does not. Does being the most successful quarterback in the conference mean that you are going to win a natty, mean that you are going to win the Big Sky Conference? No, it does not. I went over the numbers a couple of months ago and I showed that the most successful quarterbacks in the conference, statistically, the best quarterbacks in the conference are not always the conference champ, are not always a playoff team, are not always a national championship contender. That doesn't breed success. Clifton McDowell, statistically and just off face value, was probably the fourth or fifth best quarterback over with his overall package that he could put together. I would say he was probably the third to fifth best quarterback in the conference overall. With passing, that's with running, that's just with the full package as a quarterback. You definitely could put Miles Hastings ahead of him. You probably could have put Tommy Mellott ahead of him. I mean, there's a few quarterbacks within the conference that you could have put over Clifton McDowell when he was in the conference. He still won the Big Sky Conference. He still took that team to the national championship. He did not have over 2,300 yards passing. So I don't think with this article that they're trying to say that you can't be successful with a quarterback throwing under 2,300 yards passing. It is something to notice, though. Plenty of schools have had passers over 2,300 yards passing. Montana, who went to a national championship, has not had a passer over 2,300 yards passing. So I think what this article is really doing, or what these statements in this article were really doing, is letting you know that Montana has not had very good quarterback success. And despite the Dalton Sneeds coming in 2018 and 2019, Montana has not been very successful in grabbing quarterbacks even before then. I think if you take it back 10 to 15 years, I think you'd find similar numbers. Maybe not 2,300 yards, but I think if you did maybe 2,500 yards, or maybe if you did 2,800 yards, I think you'd find some interesting data. And I think you'd find that, the success at the quarterback position at Montana has not been very bright for quite some time. I'd say for the past 10 to 15 years, it hasn't been super high level quarterback play. That's just a little bit concerning. Not having over a 2,300 yard passer definitely sheds some light on the story of why Montana hasn't been successful. And it also asks you, so what are all these other schools doing to recruit so successfully that Montana is not doing? Because in a 5-year span, there have been 15 quarterbacks that throw for over 2,300 yards. That's about 3 quarterbacks a year in the conference, and none of them have been at the University of Montana. It's just concerning, and it doesn't mean that you can't be successful, because there's been so much data given on, the quarterback position is not the only position that matters in college football. That's not the only position that you need to win at the FCS level. You need coaching, you need receivers, you need an offensive line. I think most importantly, you need an offensive line and defensive line at the FCS level. You can fill in the pieces at every other position, but I think the quarterback position means so much. And I think, it begs the question, what would Montana have looked like had they had a high-level passer? So say they had a passer who was throwing over 3,000 yards religiously. What would the squads have looked like? What would that 23 squad have looked like? Does that 23 squad win a national championship with a better passing quarterback? Does the 2021 squad win more with a better passing quarterback? Now, that 21 squad probably has an asterisk on it. The quarterback got hurt during the regular season, so that's something that you have to take into consideration when you think about that season, as well as the Dalton Snead season in 2019. He had an ankle injury as well. Now, he obviously came back and played decent, but he was an injured quarterback. In that Weber State game that they lost, he was an injured quarterback. So there's definitely things that you can point to that says, oh, this is the reason. Let's look at the history since Dalton Snead. 2021, you had Cam Humphrey, who was not super successful. I might have said Cam Miller a minute ago when I mentioned, I don't even think I said his name, but you had Cam Humphrey in 2021. He was a great quarterback, a good quarterback. I'd call him more of a game manager than more of like a prolific passer. But he also got hurt in 2021. So that was something that definitely hurt the offense and hurt the team that year during that season. Take 2022. You had, I'm blanking on this guy's name right now. I think it was Lucas. I can't remember his last name. I'm going completely blank on his last name, but Lucas is the name that's sticking out with me. But that quarterback did not go over 2,300 yards. I believe he dealt with an injury in 2022 as well. 2023, you had Clifton McDowell, who did not start the entire season, so that's something to take into account, but did start a significant amount of the season and played more games than probably a ton of the Big Sky quarterbacks, and still did not have over 2,300 yards passing. Crazy. And then you have 2024. You had the split quarterback system. Logan Fife, who I believe probably would have passed over 2,300 passing yards. He's probably just under 2,300 passing yards. Because that's probably why the number's at 2,300. Because probably Logan 5 was probably right there. I'd say Clifton McDowell was probably close to it as well too. But he probably would have went over, but they played the 2 quarterback system. So there's some things that also have played in Montana that Montana hasn't helped themselves out with this quarterback situation, where playing multiple quarterbacks. And a lot of times when teams are playing multiple quarterbacks, it's, we have one runner, we have one passer. We're going to bring one in on third down to run the ball, or short yardage situations to run the ball. And then our other quarterback's going to be our main starter. Montana was a whole different thing. They had 2 quarterbacks who had very similar playing styles, not the same playing styles, but similar playing styles. And, it just was, I would say, a flip of the coin on what quarterback was going to be on the field. Logan 5 started a lot of the games, but Ayat came in a ton. They want to help develop Ayat. Ayat couldn't steal the job, or Ayat couldn't secure the job. Logan 5 still came in. I don't know. They're doing a lot with the quarterback position, but I don't know. Going forward, how does Montana get a passer over 2,300 yards? I think first things first, when you're thinking of recently what they've done, is you need one main starter. Play one quarterback, let him fail, let him succeed, let him do what he needs to do with that position, and don't make any changes from that standpoint. So I think, you should choose one quarterback and play one quarterback. But also, let's just talk about let me get off of that point. Let me talk about Ayat for a second. If Ayat were to be the starter this year, obviously you have Jake Jensen, but if it is Ayat this season, what do they need to do? I think, first off, you play into what he does well. Ayat can throw the ball. He's a good thrower of the football. I wouldn't say he's necessarily a great thrower of the football. He's a good thrower of the football. But also what he does well is he uses his legs. You shape that offense around his skill set. Now, obviously, I don't think Jake Jensen is that type of quarterback. So if you are shaping the offense around Ayat's skill set, you're shaping it around him. And obviously, you're saying that he's going to be the guy. Coach Houck has never and will never commit to saying who the quarterback is before training camp. The guys are going to go in there and earn it, and that's what he said at the Big Sky Media Day last week. But, I think with the Ayat consideration, you have to play into what he does well. You have to use his skill set, so lean into that. And maybe he gets over 2,300 yards passing. Maybe he gets over 3,000 yards passing. I don't think you need him to be a super successful thrower of the ball to have a successful football team. But I think you need him to be extremely efficient, extremely accurate. And I think you need him to know all the ins and outs of the offense. But I think you get a better chance of being successful offense with Ayat, given his ability to do things on the ground with his legs. I think that's, where college football is at these days. You need a quarterback who can do it with their arm, who can do it with their legs. And all the quarterbacks who have won national championships can do both. Cam Miller, Mark Gronowski can do both. You think about the quarterback at Sam Houston who did it a few years ago. He could use his legs as well. You think about Clifton McDowell taking the team to a national championship, could do it with his legs. You think about Tommy Mellott playing in a national championship, could do it with his legs. I mean, there's so many quarterbacks, and all of them you look at are versatile. Even Eric Barrier, who went to a national championship as a young player at Eastern Washington, could also use his legs. Now, he was a player who never would use his legs unless he had to, but he was very successful and very mobile as a quarterback. So, I think it's a great article by SWX Montana. I think it sheds some light on, I think it starts the conversation. Montana not having a thrower over 2,300 yards and the conference having 15 of those in the last 5 seasons. I think that's the start to the conversation. But I think that just causes you to dive deeper, do more research, look into it more, and find out why that is the case and how Montana is able to flip that. Starts with recruiting, starts with development. It starts with actually, playing the guys and giving them a chance to succeed and fail and giving them a chance to learn. There's a whole host of things that come along with this statement. But you guys let me know what you guys think about that. What is it about Montana not having over 2,300 yards passer in a season? What do you guys think about that? Let me know in the comments, and I will move on. Okay, Mr. Donald Trump has released an executive order on college sports, giving some guidelines and guidance on where the new landscape of college sports is going to be going, and trying to help out, some of the NCAA, trying to help out the College Sports Commission, trying to help out these administrators in college sports to stop getting sued. And so what does this executive order do? There's 5 sections in it that kind of outline what this executive order would do. Would it to become law? And I'm going to break it down and talk about some of the things that it says. So purpose and policy, which is section 1. College sports are uniquely American institutions, provide life-changing educational and leadership development opportunities to more than 500,000 student athletes through almost $4 billion in scholarships each year. College athletics also provide substantial support to local economies and form an indelible part of family activities, pastimes, and culture in many communities. 2, protecting and expanding women's and non-revenue sports and prohibiting third-party pay-for-play payments. That's the biggest part about this, is the prohibiting of third-party pay-for-play payments. That is something that people believe is going to have a lot of pushback against it, because third-party basically means those collectives. A lot of these collectives are not university entities. They are third-party entities. So those collectives paying those student athletes, if those payments were to be prohibited, that would mean something needs to happen with those collectives. Something needs to happen with these payments. If you're prohibiting third-party pay-for-play payments, that means the money all has to come from the institution. And that means there's no collectives. That means if the money all has to come from the institution, that means the money all has to fall within the revenue share number. That means you can't throw these big numbers at these athletes hoping to get some of it in rev share and the rest through the NIL collective, which kind of goes against what was just announced last week, which we'll get into in a little bit. So it is the policy of the executive branch that opportunities for scholarships and collegiate athletic competition in women's and non-revenue sports must be preserved and, where possible, expanded, including specifically as follows with respect to the 2025-2026 athletic season and future athletic seasons. Collegiate athletic departments with greater than $125 million in revenue during the 24-25 athletic season should provide more scholarship athletic opportunities in non-revenue sports during the 24-25 athletic season, and should provide the maximum number of roster spots for non-revenue sports permitted under the applicable college athletic rules. So with that being the new House settlement, schools have to provide the maximum number of roster spots. So if you have the ability to provide 110 roster spots, you need to provide the full number of 110 roster spots. Maximum number of roster spots. Section 2, or piece number 2 of Section 2. College athletic departments with greater than $50 million in revenue during the 24-25 athletic season should provide at least as many scholarship opportunities in non-revenue sports as providing during the 24-25 athletic season, and should provide maximum number of roster spots for non-revenue sports permitted under the applicable collegiate athletic rules. So basically, it just goes on. Here's the biggest part: the Section B of Section 3 of Section 2. Section B of Section 3 in Section 2 of this whole thing. I don't know what these little, it's like I's. So it's Section 3, number 3 in Section 2. I don't know. Number 3 in Section 2. It is the policy of the executive branch that any revenue sharing permitted between university and college athletics should be designed and implemented in a manner that preserves or expands scholarships and collegiate athletic opportunities in women's and non-revenue sports. This is another piece. College athletic departments with $50 million or less in revenue during the 24-25 athletic season, or that do not have any revenue generating sports, should not disproportionately reduce scholarship opportunities or roster spots for sports based on the revenue that the sport generates. So basically, even if a sport is in the red in terms of generating revenue, that shouldn't dictate the amount of scholarships or the amount of roster spots that are given to these athletes. Basically saying that, like, hey, if your sports aren't gaining money, that doesn't matter to us. They still are given the opportunity to play sports at this university and participate. So money should not dictate roster spots and scholarship availability. I'm trying to see where it prohibits, where it mentions the prohibition of third party. Okay, here we go. To preserve the critical educational and developmental benefits of college athletics for our nation, it is the policy of the executive branch that the third party pay-for-play payments to collegiate athletes are improper and should not be permitted by universities. This policy does not apply to compensation provided to an athlete for the fair market value that the athlete provides to a third party, such as a brand endorsement. So basically, it's not fully prohibiting third-party pay-for-play payments. It's basically just saying, if you're just paying this athlete money in order to come to the university, that is prohibited. Now, if this is a business, say Vaseline wants to come and pay this athlete $20,000 to be a brand ambassador for them throughout the season, and they're going to do things that show that they are a brand ambassador, that is legal. But if you're just paying an athlete to come play for your school, that is considered pay for play and is illegal and is prohibited. But that doesn't apply to compensation provided to an athlete for a fair market value that the athlete provides to a third party. So basically, are you doing something for this money? And that was another thing that, which I guess we'll kind of get into it right now. Attorneys have resolved the dispute over how College Sports Commission handles NIL collectives. Sources tell Yahoo Sports. revising its approach to treat them like other businesses, a major move that paves the way for continued collective operations. So previously, the College Sports Commission had said that these collectives were not, that doesn't deem fair for a legitimate business. What is the language that they use in here? Revising the approach to treat them like other businesses. Basically, they had said that previously collective deals, third-party deals through collectives were going to be denied through NIL Go, which is the new clearinghouse for NIL deals within college sports. Previously, there had been guidance given by the College Sports Commission that those would not be permitted anymore. Now, basically, that has been reversed, and those collective deals are now deemed fair and legal, and they are going to be treated like other businesses. So a collective is considered a third-party entity and is going to be treated like any other business. Now, with that being treated like any other business, these collective deals still need to be treated as if they are fair, still need to be fair market value, still need to have some actual business purpose. So basically, if an athlete is getting paid $20 million from a collective, or an athlete is being paid $1 million from a collective, the rest of his money's coming for rev share, you're making $1 million from the collective. What are you doing in order to get that money from the collective? Are you doing a jersey signing for the collective? Are you doing an autograph signing for the collective? You need to do an event for that collective, which would be a 501c3, I would guess, which would be, are those for profits or nonprofits? I believe a collective should probably be a nonprofit because it's similar to a booster club. We're raising money for a certain purpose to give to these athletes. So the events that these athletes are doing, whatever the business purpose these athletes are doing to get this money, should be done for an actual business purpose. It shouldn't be done just willy-nilly. Oh, I want this money, so they're going to pay me $20 million to come to their school, but I'm not going to do anything to get this money. They should be treated like actual businesses. So if you're getting this money, so when these collectives submit these deals in NIL Go, hey, we're going to pay this high school recruit $1 million to come play for us. Okay, what are they going to do to get that $1 million? They're going to have annual signings here, and there. They're going to have annual appearances here, and there. They're going to have to do community service 4 to 5 times a year. I mean, there should be actual business purposes that are lending itself to the collective and making the collective an actual business instead of just being a fundraising entity for the university, which is basically what they are. But these deals have to fit a legitimate business purpose. So, but that's kind of against what it says in here, because section 2 says that these deals from third-party entities are prohibited unless it's such as unless athlete provides to a third party, unless the athlete provides something to that third party. So I guess it's kind of the same thing. They're kind of giving the same guidance within this executive order from Donald Trump, as well as the guidance from the College Sports Commission. I guess these third-party entities can still exist, these deals can still exist, but they have to actually be a legitimate business purpose. They have to actually be fair market value, but they also have to fit a legitimate business purpose. You can't just be paying out money because you have it and you want this athlete to come to your school. There has to be some legitimate business purpose that these athletes are going to get this money. And yeah, so Trump's executive order is very interesting. We will see what this has to do. There's some more in this though. I want to talk about. So, section 3, student athlete status. The Secretary of Labor and National Labor Relations Board shall determine and implement the appropriate measures with respect to clarifying the status of collegiate athletes. So basically, that Secretary of Labor and National Labor Relations Board is going to determine what deems somebody as a student athlete. What deems somebody as a collegiate athlete? What does that even mean? Measures with appropriate measures with respect to clarifying the status of collegiate athletes. So basically, measures with respect to clarifying the status of collegiate athletes. What does that mean? You must be taking a certain amount of credit hours to be a collegiate athlete. You must be also enrolled in a university, and it must be an accredited university. You must be passing a certain amount of your classes. Your GPA must be here. I mean, there's still going to be benchmarks for what how you deem and where your status as a collegiate athlete is at, including through guidance, rules, and other appropriate actions that will maximize the educational benefits and opportunities provided by higher education institutions through athletics. So basically, trying to cover up for where the NCAA may be missing at, where the NCAA may be getting sued at. There needs to be guidance on what deems you a student athlete, what concludes your status as a student athlete, what starts your status as a student athlete, what all of it. All of it. There needs to be more guidance. Clearly, with all these people suing the NCAA to get more years of eligibility, the NCAA's rules mean nothing. They mean nothing. So these schools need more guidance on what deems me a student athlete, what makes me a student athlete, what does not make me a student athlete. Legal protections for college athletics from lawsuits. That's also in this Trump executive order. The Attorney General and the Chairman of the Federal Trade Commission shall work to stabilize and preserve college athletics through litigation, guidelines, policies, and other actions as appropriate by protecting the rights and interests of student athletes and long-term availability of collegiate athletic scholarships and opportunities when such elements are unreasonably challenged under antitrust or other legal theories. So basically, that's what I was just talking about. All of these lawsuits are coming through the line now with, I'm getting this money taken off the table from me because I'm not getting an extra year, even though my eligibility by the NCAA is deemed done. I still have an opportunity to make money. If I were able to play this extra season, this is what money I would make. You're taking money off the table from me because I'm not able to play this extra year, even though the NCAA rules say you can play a total of, your window is 5 years. Once that window starts, you have this amount of time to be able to play those 5 seasons. You get 4 seasons in 5 years, but if you get a red shirt, that window is LinkedIn. If you get a gray shirt, that window is LinkedIn. If you get a medical red shirt, that window is LinkedIn. So people got a COVID red shirt, so that window is LinkedIn, but it's usually 4 and 5. You play 4 seasons, you get 5 years to play 4 seasons. Once that window is done, that window is done. That no longer matters. People are fighting that left and right, and people are getting sued. So they need some guidance legal guidance from Congress, from the president, to tell us, hey, when these students are done, they're done and they cannot sue us anymore. We need precedent to be set on this. Within 60 days of the date of this order, to advance the purposes of subsection of this section, the Attorney General and the Chairman of the Federal Trade Commission shall review and, as necessary, revise litigation positions, guidelines, policies, and other actions, and develop a plan to implement appropriate future litigation positions, guidelines, policies, and other actions as it pertains to collegiate athletics and lawsuits in collegiate athletics. The last thing is protecting development of the United States Olympic team. We're not going to read that, but I think this is a decent executive order from Donald Trump trying to give decent guidance for these institutions, as well as the NCAA, College Sports Commission. Now, I don't know how much of this, new guidance on this executive order kind of steps on the toes of the College Sports Commission, but I think it's meant to help them, and it's meant to give them more protections legally for some of the things that they're looking to do. It's not necessarily setting a cap. It's honestly opening up more of that cap if these collectives are still able to give whatever dollar amount they want. There's obviously just a soft cap. There's not a hard cap, and I think it was Greg Sankey who said that at the SEC Media Days last week, talking about that there's a soft cap. There's not a hard cap in college sports, and for that reason, people are still going to be able to go to the highest bidder instead of having sort of a cap. This is what we can pay you. Nobody else in college is going to make more than, here's the players that are making around what you're making. This is what we can afford to pay you right now. And that's what that is. But I don't know. We will see. But you guys let me know what you guys think what you guys think about this executive order. Do you guys think it's going to give more protections to college sports? Do you guys think it's going to help the new landscape we're out in, that we're help out these coaches and institutions given the landscape that we're in? Or do you guys think it's just kind of You guys let me know in the comments down below, and I will move on. Okay, Tim Plow is potentially giving some insight into who their starting quarterback at UC Davis might be. He mentioned when he was talking to CBS Sacramento last week that if we played a game tomorrow, he would be the guy. Who is the guy? He's referring to redshirt freshman quarterback Kaiden Bennett out of Del Oro High School in that Sacramento Davis area. I think it's actually in the Sacramento area. But Del Oro quarterback, he's number 12 at UC Davis. He's a redshirt freshman. I guess he was the quarterback that impressed the most during the spring. There was another quarterback he mentioned that, is in the competition, but mentioning, if we had to play tomorrow, that this guy would be our starter, that gives a lot of insight into where their mind is at. And obviously it seems like right now at UC Davis, the job is Kaiden Bennett's to lose. So basically you have the job right now. If we played tomorrow, you'd be our guy, but don't make me regret this. Basically, you still have an opportunity to lose the job. Tim Plow mentioned in that interview as well that, he's a strong believer that you must earn the job. You're not going to just be given the job because you performed well in spring ball. You come in fall camp, you take the job, you earn the job, you show that you deserve the job over and over and over. You don't just do it once a couple times in spring ball, maybe have a good spring game, and then the job is yours. No, come on, work over the summer, come into fall camp, and show me over and over and over and over and over and over again why you should be our guy. Kaiden Bennett in high school. Kaiden Bennett, first off, stands at 6 foot, 190 pounds. His senior stats were 2,900 yards, 69.3% completion percentage. He threw for 226 yards per game. He had 30 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. These are his senior year stats. He also had 116 carries, 489 yards on 9 touchdowns. All of that is per max preps. So almost a 3,000 yard passer in high school. Close to 70% completion percentage, which is good. 32 touchdowns on 7 interceptions. Obviously, these are all high school stats. But I think they lend themselves I think you can get a little bit of information from looking at somebody's high school stats. Looks to be a pretty efficient quarterback with that 70% completion percentage. That's what you really, really love to see, as well as him being a runner. I can't remember the last time I saw a really big running quarterback at UC Davis. I mean, I know during my time it was Jake Mayer. Obviously you had Miles Hastings. Neither were huge running quarterbacks. I can't remember if Jake Mayer was, but I don't think he was a huge running quarterback either. Neither have been big running quarterbacks. So from that standpoint, if he's able to bring that piece of it, but maybe he just did that in high school. Maybe he's a primary pocket passer. I think his longest run in high school was 66 yards I saw per max preps. But I mean, this is really exciting, a freshman quarterback starting at UC Davis. One thing I like about them starting a freshman quarterback is, say he starts this year, he does really well. That gives him a runway. Now, obviously, a lot of times in FCS football and these days, you start a freshman quarterback, he's gone in 2 to 3 in the next 1 to 2 years. But hopefully at UC Davis, you start this freshman quarterback, you develop him, and he ends up being a very good piece for you his junior, senior year, somebody that can potentially take you to a national championship if UC Davis keeps bringing in the level of talent that they had. I think that's a big piece for UC Davis, especially if it truly is that, he's their guy. He's taking all the first team reps, and, he's really prepping for that first game of the season against Mercer. I believe they play week 0 actually as well. That's a good thing to have. When you are able to get a quarterback and play him with those one-team reps early on in training camp, that means he's getting all the 1 reps throughout training camp. That means he's working with all the 1s throughout training camp. That means he's working with all the starting offensive line throughout training camp. I mean, having as much continuity going into that first game as you can is super, super important. I like that UC Davis has kind of come around to who their quarterback may be. Now, obviously, he's not the guy yet. If they played tomorrow, he would be the guy, but they still got a few weeks of training camp until their first game, so things could change. But Kaiden Bennett looking to have grabbed that starting quarterback position at UC Davis. We will see how that ebbs and flows as training camp progresses. You guys let me know what you guys think about UC Davis's quarterback, Kaiden Bennett. What do you guys think about Tim Plow's comments? You guys let me know in the comments down below, and I will move on. Okay. I don't think anybody knew about this until recently this past week. Zach McKinnell tweeted about it of the FCS Blue Bloods, FCS Football Central for Sports Illustrated. Sacramento State QB Kaiden Bennett has transferred to Delaware State. I certainly didn't know this. Zach McKinnell says, Bennett posted 2,100 passing yards and 16 passing touchdowns, 577 rushing yards, and 6 rushing touchdowns in 2023. He led the Hornets to the second round of the SCS playoffs and an FBS win over Stanford. Now, Kaiden Bennett was also at Sac State in 2024. He didn't play. They played the freshman quarterback who was a freshman last year, Carson Conklin, who's now at Fresno State. They played him over Kaiden Bennett. Now, I don't know if Kaiden Bennett had got injured or what happened, but I know he didn't play a ton in 2024. I remember speaking to him at the media day for preseason for the 2024 season, before the 2024 season kicked off, and he had mentioned that he was excited for the 2024 season. I don't know what changed, but something had changed. They didn't start him through the second half of that season. He only started like 2 games, I believe, in 2024. But in May, now I had believed that Kaiden Bennett's season, his career was done after that 2024 season. Now, I don't know if he dealt with an injury over 2024. I think that might be the case because he came out in May 22nd of 2025 and tweeted, "Waiver approved for 1 year of eligibility. Thank you, God. Let's work." That was Kaiden Bennett on his Twitter account in May 2020. in May this year. So what I think happened is Kaiden Bennett finished his career. He didn't like how his career finished. Say maybe he dealt with an injury in 2024. Maybe I think there was somewhere in 2023 or 2024 where he dealt with an injury, and it kind of hampered. I think it might have been 2024 because he didn't play a ton of the games. I don't know why they wouldn't play his more veteran quarterback who is shown to be able to win games at Sac State through some of those other games. They didn't though. What I think happened is he finished his career, but he knows that he had dealt with some injuries, never maybe got a medical red shirt, went back and fought for a waiver to get one more year of eligibility, gets that another year of eligibility on May 22nd. And at that point, Sac State, the ship has sailed with Sac State. They already got their guys. They got Jaden Rashada. They got the pieces that they need. They've set in things in motion at Sac State with what they're going to do. So Kaiden Bennett now has to look for another place to play. I have not talked to Kaiden Bennett. I have not talked to anybody at Sac State. This is just me guessing what I think happened and based on some information, based on some research, what I think happened. I think he got injured through one of the 23-24 seasons. I think he obviously was a senior last year, so his eligibility was technically up. But he deemed that, I didn't play enough games, maybe let's say 2024. I didn't play enough games in 24 to deem that a full season, and I didn't think I was healthy enough to have played a full season, so I think I deserve another year of eligibility. He was given another year of eligibility. The Sac State ship had sailed, so then he put his name in the transfer portal, and Delaware State came calling. He ends up at Delaware State. Their freshman All-American quarterback, I think it was a freshman All-American or freshman All-Conference quarterback, ends up transferring from Delaware State out of nowhere, and that's what kind of made everybody aware of what was going on at Delaware State, because it's like, oh whoa, this quarterback just transferred away. He was the best, one of the best young quarterbacks in the conference, maybe one of the best young quarterbacks in the country. Why is he leaving this school? Then you find out Kaiden Bennett's there. He's a vet. He's played a ton of football. Probably showed up better in the early days of training camp. Probably showed up better than in the summer. The writing was probably on the wall for the freshman incoming sophomore quarterback and let him know, hey, we ain't going to be there. Now, there's a few things. I already said the first part. How much would Kaiden Bennett have helped the Brennan Marion go-go offense with his versatility? Kaiden Bennett is a quarterback who can throw the ball very successfully, can run the ball very successfully as well. I am somebody who thinks if they would have known sooner about Kaiden Bennett's situation, I think they probably would have liked to hang on to him. Now, obviously, I'm sure Kaiden Bennett probably talked to Brennan Marion. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I would have. If I were Kaiden Bennett, I would have talked to him, because that system seems like that's a system that would fit Kaiden Bennett and his talents. He can run the ball. He can pass the ball. They're doing a lot of triple option things in that go-go offense, as well as downfield passing game. Those are two things I think Kaiden Bennett does well. I would think he was somebody who would thrive in an offense like that. I would think Brennan Marion would love to have a quarterback like that. I don't know, obviously, but I think it was probably the fact that, there were already probably too many pieces at Sac State for them to then pivot and take it back. It was probably at a point where it's like, we've already brought in all these recruits. We've already promised all these guys these things. Now that your waiver got approved, they couldn't guarantee that. So it's something that we can't wait on you getting your waiver approved to wait if we grab another quarterback. No, we're going to grab these quarterbacks, and if you're available and if we still need you at that point, we'll take you. I don't know, but Kaiden Bennett's at Delaware State. I'm very excited to see what he's going to do at Delaware State this year. But yeah, exciting news for Kaiden Bennett. He got that waiver approved. Nobody really talked about it on May 22nd, 2025, but he tweeted that he got that waiver approved. Now he's at an HBCU looking to make some noise. So you guys let me know what you guys think about Kaiden Bennett ending up at Delaware State in the comments down below, and I will move on. Okay, Sacred Heart will be joining the CAA for the 2026 season. And they released a statement talking about it. So we're going to talk about their statement. Sacred Heart, currently an FCS independent, will join as a football member starting in July 1, 2026. Sacred Heart has recently left the NEC for the MAAC for its Olympic sports, leaving the football team as an FCS independent in 2024. The Pioneers went 5-6 last year. Merrimack made a similar move with Sacred Heart and is still out there as an FCS independent. We are pleased to welcome Sacred Heart University as the newest member of the conference, CAA Commissioner Joe D'Antonio said. In an ever-changing landscape across collegiate athletics and in FCS football, Sacred Heart is committed to competing at the highest level and is striving for championships. Sacred Heart is a great fit for the conference academically and geographically, and we look forward to what they will bring to the CAA. So obviously when they say geographically, on the eastern part of the United States, I believe Sacred Heart I don't want to lie. I don't know where Sacred Heart is, but I believe it's up in like the northeast part of the country, maybe like New Hampshire or like Connecticut, somewhere up there in one of those states, in the New England area type, I think. But let's look at some of the additions Sacred Heart, or not Sacred Heart, but the CAA has made since 2021. Bryant, Campbell, Hampton, Monmouth, North Carolina A&T, now Sacred Heart. And let's look at some of the schools that they've lost. They've lost James Madison, Delaware, Richmond, William and Mary, and Villanova. I mean, and this is all per Sam Herder. So thanks Sam Herder for that data. Always keeping up with the FCS, what's going on in the FCS and some of the schools. But I mean, when you look at some of the schools that have joined, some of the schools that have left, it just doesn't look like the conference is. Let's make something very, very plain. The CAA is not getting stronger. And that's not to poo-poo on Sacred Heart. That's not to poo-poo on Bryant, Hampton, Monmouth, any of these schools. But when you think of what the CAA used to be, think of James Madison, think of Delaware, think of Villanova. I mean, teams that were religiously playoff contenders and teams that could make a deep run in the playoffs and potentially win a national championship. I mean, the schools that they've been adding are not strong at all. Sacred Heart does not compete in the Northeastern Conference. They went 5-6 last year. I think maybe there was a few years ago that Sacred Heart competed and was a playoff team out of the NEC, but I mean, the NEC in itself is not strong. So when you're adding teams from the NEC, you're adding an already not strong competitor to your conference. And if the CAA wants to continue to be a competitive conference and wants to continue to be seen as a competitive conference, I think they need to start looking at some of the teams that they're adding and start being a little more diligent with doing their checks and balances on who these teams are. I don't know. I mean, Sacred Heart, it is what it is. I think they're trying to keep their numbers up. CAA is the biggest conference in FCS football. I think they got 16 members, 15 or 16 members. Last year, I think they had 16 members. They got a huge conference with a ton of teams in it that covers a lot of geography on that eastern side of the country. And I think they had 2 playoff teams last year. Well, they have Villanova and Rhode Island, maybe 3. I'm not thinking of their third team that they might have had last year, but you know, and even with that, say they had 3-4 playoff teams, their teams are just not very successful. I mean, Rhode Island was nearly one of the top 5 teams in the country all season last year, and nobody had respect for them because you looked at their CAA schedule, and it's just weak team after weak team after weak team. It's one thing to have a big conference. It's another thing to have a big conference that has a lot of competitive teams in it. The CAA is not that. The CAA will have maybe 4 to 5 competitive teams in it year over year. The rest are just, not great. And obviously they're going to compete with each other. It's going to be competitive within the CAA. But when those teams come and play teams outside of the CAA, they don't seem to be very successful. So I don't know. Sacred Heart's another addition. Don't love the addition personally. You guys can let me know in the comments what you think about the addition of Sacred Heart to the CAA. You let me know in the comments down below, and I will move on. Okay, Montana has made Marcus Welnel, the former general manager of the Good Old Grizzlies Collective, the new chief revenue officer, as well as an assistant athletic director to Kent Haslam at the University of Montana. What does this mean? Kent Haslam said in a statement, Marcus will be charged with maximizing our revenue streams, finding opportunities to utilize our facilities, and working with the coaches to build strategies around revenue sharing. So let's break that down. Marcus will be charged with maximizing our revenue streams. So what does maximizing revenue streams mean? Basically concessions. What does that look like, maximizing that revenue stream? When we have concerts here, what does that look like, maximizing that revenue stream? I mean, he works for the university, but he also works for the athletic department. So is this only athletic revenue streams? I would think that would be only athletic revenue streams. So maybe that looks like, hey, track is, we have revenue streams all over the place. Track could be a revenue stream, but we don't charge for our track meets. So maybe that looks like him making them charge for track meets. I don't know, but he's charged with maximizing revenue streams. So looking at how they can make more money from the places that they're already making money from. So how do we raise more money? How do we get more money out of concessions? How do we get more money out of tickets? How do we get more money out of student athletic fees? Maybe this looks like Marcus Welnel adding a student athletic fee to bring in more money through that revenue stream. I don't know, but maximizing revenue streams, finding opportunities to utilize our facilities. So maybe that looks like renting out the indoor facility, utilizing our facilities. So renting out facilities, finding opportunities to utilize our facilities. So maybe that looks like the schools, the programs within the University of Montana when they need facilities. maybe he's the one who's now managing that. I don't know what it means by utilize our facilities. That was the one that I was kind of confused about. Is finding opportunities to utilize our facilities. I don't know what that looks like, and I don't know what they mean by that. And then lastly, working with the coaches to build strategies around revenue sharing. So what does it look like to build strategies around revenue sharing? Well, he's our chief revenue officer, so he knows what our revenue number is. He knows what we can pay. He knows what we can't pay. He knows what that needs to look like. We have this amount of money to rev share this year, and from that rev share, your school is going to be getting a percentage of this. So where would you like this money to go? I don't know, building strategies around revenue sharing. I mean, I think that could look a multitude of ways. I mean, building strategies, basically, we're not building a strategy, but here's the pot of money that we have, and this is where your team fits in with that pot of money. Or, where is your revenue share coming from? Where is the money that we're going to revenue share for your program? Where is that going to come from? Let's build a strategy on what that looks like, what you would like that revenue stream to be, and how you would like it to be utilized for your program. I don't know. I think there's a whole lot of ways they could go with this. It's interesting that they make this a position. Does this mean that the collective is going away? Does this mean that they're just going to hire a new general manager for the collective? I mean, that's my next question, is what happens with the collective? Is this just them bringing the collective in-house? You're hiring Marcus as a position as an assistant athletic director, chief revenue officer. Does that mean the collective is now considered an in-house entity and he's basically going to run that within in-house? They didn't say that in their statement, but I don't know. This begs the question, what happens to the collective? Finding opportunities to use our facilities. Does this mean that Marcus will now be event planning as a way to fund revenue sharing opportunities at the U? That was the main thing that came to my head, is like, what does it mean with more opportunities, finding opportunities to use our facilities? I don't know. Working with coaches on rev share strategies. Would love to know what that means. Probably means we need to bring Marcus onto the channel to ask him all of these questions. And then, is Montana hiring a GM of all sports in a way? Like, does this kind of look like he's a general manager? I looked at the definition of a general manager. It said a general manager is responsible for overseeing the overall operations and performance of a business unit or organization, ensuring alignment with strategic objectives, which they said, and working with coaches to build strategies around revenue sharing, with ensuring alignment with strategic objectives and driving profitability. I mean, based on the last piece of this definition, it kind of seems like he's the general manager at the University of Montana, but not over just football, over all of the athletics, over all of the revenue sharing. I mean, it obviously is chief revenue officer. He's not a general manager, but it kind of seems like they just wanted to bring the collective in-house, have somebody who was already working with the collective, working with all the money that they were dealing with in there, working with their budgets that they got in there. Let's bring that person in-house and make him a part of the university, now that it seems like our collective might not be as needed. Now, maybe at the P5s, you still need the collectives because you have your rev share number, but then the collective is going to come over the top and give you the number that you want. But at the FCS level currently, I don't know if the collectives are still going to be super, super needed outside of their fundraising capabilities. But if those payments aren't even permitted, if you can't find legitimate business reasons for those entities to exist, I don't think you can have those collectives anymore. So that may be something that people are wrestling with right now, and maybe that's something that the University of Montana wrestled with as to why they decided to bring Marcus in-house. So Marcus Welnel, now the new chief revenue officer. You guys let me know what you guys think about that in the comments down below. I think, this is just a facet of them kind of, what I think of immediately when I see this is them trying to mesh the departments together, the collective and the athletic department trying to join in a marriage together to where they can work better together. And why not bring the general manager of the collective in as an in-house employee instead of having him be a third-party employee with the collective? Obviously, they were always working together hand in hand, but now they're just going to be part of the same institution, part of the same organization. So easier, more seamless work together. You guys let me know what you guys think about this new position. What do you guys think about Marcus Welnel being placed in it? And I will move on. Okay, I want to thank you guys for tapping into my channel this week. Once again, got a lot of new content coming for the football season. Going to be doing a lot of good breakdowns. Going to try to do some more player interviews. Going to try to do some coaches interviews. Going to try to do some media interviews during the season. Going to try to get some recurring guests that we can have on, people that want to talk FCS football with us, talk ball with us, people who you guys like to see. So if there's anybody you guys would like to see on the channel in terms of a FCS football pundit, or even if it's a college football pundit that maybe I can get in touch with, you guys let me know who you guys would want to have on here, and I can try to get them on here to come talk FCS ball with us weekly. Let me know if there's any breakdowns you guys would like me to do. Got a few breakdowns coming during the preseason, but obviously going to stop on those once the season starts, once we get into the season. But if there is still anybody that you guys want me to look at, let me know in the comments, and I will get their breakdown working and going through the pipeline. I want to thank you guys for continuing to show the channel love. I know we had an audio issue last week. Somebody mentioned that, you know, my main audio may be louder on the main video than it is with the advertisements. I don't know so much about that. Like, my audio obviously is what my audio is. With the YouTube ads, I don't control the volume on those YouTube ads. So if those are too loud, let me know. If I'm too loud, let me know. I know with the audio that's going on the Big Sky Breakdown, we've had a little bit of clickiness, and I'm still trying to figure out what is the reason for that clickiness. I don't know if it's because my mic is too loud, if it's making the speakers cut out. I don't know, but just trust me, and I'm trying to figure it out. And I appreciate you guys for sticking in there with me and staying loyal to the soil and viewing my channel. So I thank you guys so much. Let me know if there's anything you guys need from me in terms of content, or anybody you guys want me to bring on, and I will work on that. But the season is fast and approaching very, very soon. I cannot wait. And I will catch you guys next week. Thank you so much. See you later.